So we're at week 3 of the Advent season. The traditional process is light a candle every week and think about a word, and those words kind of follow a pattern. The idea of Advent means waiting. It reflects back to the waiting that God's people did for his promised Messiah, the waiting for Jesus to be born. It also is a reflection of the waiting we've done in waiting on God to meet us, save us, provide for us, satisfied, obviously, that waiting satisfied in Jesus. And then it also is a waiting for the second advent, the second coming of Jesus, and in the anticipation of that. So we have thought in week 1 about hope, that the promise of the advent, the promise of the coming of Jesus causes in us. And then in week 2, we thought about the word peace and the promise and the hope and the anticipation of peace that comes when hope is realized. And today we come to the third word, and it's a word that we confuse with an emotion, and it's really not an emotion word. The idea here is joy. This week is joy. And as I think about joy, I think about what is joy. And of course, as I just said, we confuse it with the emotion of happiness. But joy is a condition, it's a reality, it's a way of thinking, a state of mind, a state of life, quite frankly, that isn't contingent on circumstances, and happiness is. Happiness is circumstantially based, but joy is not. Joy is something that is resident deep inside us, that is not dependent upon a particular set of circumstances. The shepherds were in the fields, if you remember the story, and we read this passage last week as we talked about peace. The shepherds were in the fields, and they were keeping watch over their flock in Luke 2, and suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them, and they were terrified. But the angel reassured them with this statement. He said, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people." He is saying, I'm bringing you good news that something's about to happen that is going to change the way you live your life. And your life will no longer be on the emotional roller coaster and ups and downs of your circumstances, but instead, joy will be your place. You'll know joy when your emotions are down. You'll know joy when your emotions are high. I was thinking about that phenomena, that sense of joy. And I've had the privilege of being around people in the past who have modeled that, where life was hard, but they were still joyful, and they were leaning into that reality. And I have come to the conclusion that as we make our way through Advent, these words are they culminate, or they're progressive. We layer them on top of each other, and so we started with hope, and hope begins to build joy in us, doesn't it? That there's something to hope for. That even though my circumstances around me are as they are, I don't despair. I don't get down. I don't ride that emotional roller coaster, but instead I have this pervasive sense of joy because I have hope, and that hope brings a peace. That hope that God is in charge. That hope that God will make all things right, that hope for restoration, all of those things that are a part of our waiting brings peace, that we can have peace in the midst of unpeaceful circumstances, and that peace brings joy, brings a sense of satisfaction, a sense of contentment, a sense of pleasure, that even though the circumstances don't seem to say that, the resident in our life is joy, and it is bigger and more profound than the circumstances that we face. When Jesus entered our world, he brought us joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength, we have said. David wrote that in the Psalms. The joy of the Lord fills our hearts. And the angels said to the shepherds, what's about to happen is going to bring joy, not just happiness, but joy. God entered our world, and because he entered our world, we have joy. I hope today you know joy in your life as you celebrate this Advent season.